Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. It's not getting any easier, is it? I think right now Rovers fans are all questioning what the players did in that international break with the new manager, because right now we seem to be spiralling and every game we're getting worse. A manager that came into a relatively good situation, team in the playoffs, players coming back from injury and playing relegation fodder for a few weeks, has now turned into a team that looks mentally and physically broken, scoring 1 point in the last 6 games, which is causing major stress and heartache with the fan base, which once again feels lonely and abandoned by the owners. After a period of hope, we are back in turmoil with the major media outlets talking about how fans are asking the executives to stay away due to the toxic atmosphere that is following the club. We ask, when will it end? Seems like this once proud club is on its knees, begging someone to help it thrive again. Fans are getting their calculators out to see if we're safe this season, but the writing's on the wall for next year, but only time will tell. The saying is, you will have to break yourself down to rebuild yourself stronger. The club has spoken about rebuilding, but right now, I don't believe the people in charge are capable of building anything. Ishmael used the word discontent, but I think we need a stronger word than that. And the stories this week do not make good reading, as Rovers travelled to relegation-threatened Portsmouth and put in a weak effort as they lost 1-0, making us wonder which team were candidates to drop into League One. More injury woes, as once again we're asking how a club can have this many injuries. Fans are calling for owners and staff to stay away. And finally, Rovers return home to play Middlesbrough on Friday. Will it be a happy homecoming? Oh, God, I hope so. Mark, we've had people emailing in calling us too negative. One person actually saying that they were getting annoyed with me, and I didn't even think I was that bad. We've also been told on Twitter that we have a duty as content creators to find the positives and not spread any toxicity. We've said it all along that we just want to concentrate on football, but as fans, we can't ignore what is going on off the pitch because it's affecting what's going on it. You know, I know that's quite a big opening monologue from me, but I've had my say. Before reviewing the game, is there anything you want to say?
There's a lot I want to say, Mike. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. It looks like the team are exactly the same. Right now, I fear for us. I fear that, you know, we're probably about safe this year if we're being realistically honest. But you can't see how that's going to get any better. I don't understand the direction. I don't understand what the aim of things are. This looks way beyond results, doesn't it? We've had people talking about protests. We're on the major news outlets. Obviously, we've got Adam Cattrall, somebody I know, who's on Talksport, and he's talked, and I thought it was very measured. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of whether we should protest, whether we shouldn't. You know, I think that's an individual decision. But, my decision making is we've got a game coming up at home on Friday. And I've got a daughter. What's the atmosphere going to be like? And I'm not blaming anybody for that. But, I'm certainly not blaming the supporters for that. But my decision making is, do I want to take her to that atmosphere? And is it going to be an enjoyable experience in any which way? And that extends far beyond football. So I think you're right. Whilst we try and stick to football, we can't just do that. I've had people asking about the forum. I've never anything to hide about the forum. I think I always wait for the minutes to come out because I think that's only right and proper. But yeah, the last fans forum was in November. We have one scheduled for February. I can't remember the exact date. But I had a conversation as chair of the forum and with Steve Waggott that evening about, I think it was either Eustace had just been left or we were just in the crux of finding somebody else. There was loads of legal stuff going on that needed sorting. And basically the conversation stemmed around, we can have it, but I might not be able to come, as in Steve Waggott. So then I'm faced with us having an agenda of when all this is going on under Eustace, there's no point asking the other people that attend the forum from the club those questions. So they would have just said, oh, we'll ask Steve or we'll ask Suhail. So I would have been left with an agenda of the kits for a couple of years off, all the, bits and bobs around what pies do we have, all the kind of stuff that, it does matter day to day and that we have to discuss. But can you imagine the minutes going out there, all this going on, and actually all we discussed was kits and what pies you have, whether the beer is too dear, whether it's too warm, too cold, all those kind of things that don't actually matter right now. So we agreed to delay it for a couple of weeks on the proviso that it was delayed, not cancelled, and that we sent some questions in. The questions we sent in have yet to be answered. And then there were questions that I'm sure all supporters ask. So just to clarify, the forum is not a supporters group. The forum is whereby it's just a means that have communicated with the club for a long time, but it's around it does have representatives from different supporters group, the Disabled Supporters Group, BRFCS, Ewood Blues, loads of different groups. We don't speak for everybody, but it's a way of getting a range of fans, but not too many that you can't have a decent discussion. And we talked about season tickets in the November one, so that was already discussed. No, we didn't say put them up. I was absolutely flabbergasted, like everybody else, that they've done that. So, yeah, the forum was due to be the beginning of April, and they've asked to delay that. And we have got a date. I think it's about the 15th of April. And the agenda items are as pretty much you can guess. They've not been finalised yet, but they will be around the unanswered questions, John Eustace, what's going on at the club, contracts, and then we will mention the kits because otherwise we'll get out of timeline and we'll not have a say in them. So, yeah, it's been a tricky time for everybody, really.
Yeah, when we're supposed to be celebrating these next 2 years, our history of Premier League champions, 150 years, and we're supposed to be celebrating the history of this club, and we're not even sure what the future holds. It's pretty terrifying as a fan. We've got fans that travel all over the country, home and away with the club. We've got people that follow the club, and no one seems to know what this future holds. And everyone's very disappointed that, with what's happening, and there just seems to be no end. There's always something. And this time it's just got that feeling that it's worse than normal. And obviously a lot of supporters groups have come together, and that's coming out in the media outlets. We wasn't one of them. We're not one of the ones that have fallen one way or the other. Like we said, we try and focus on the football. That's the one thing we've always tried to do. I know you've got your forum things, but we've not, we've tried to compartmentalize talking just on the pitch. But right now, like I said in my very long opening speech there, which I'd written down, it feels like what's going on off the field has come onto the field now. There's definitely something not right, and it started. Under Eustace. It's now come into under Ishmael. We've had a really bad run, and it came to a head again at the weekend after having this international break. Nothing seemed to have changed, and then we go and lose 1-0 at Portsmouth. So let's get into that game now. We'll play the audio reaction, and this is how we felt just after the game.
I could have fallen asleep for the rest of that half and known exactly what was going to happen. We are way too far apart from front to back. This season needs to end and needs to end quickly. It's going to get more and more toxic in the ground. It's going to get more and more toxic online. And I can't see any positives. I actually can't see any team cohesion, any way of playing, any way forward right now. If Ishmael is going to be the man next year, which I'm sure he is, then we're going to have to go with him and let him rip this team up, because it's just not working at all. And it's bloody goddamn awful, Mike. I actually can't wait to break this down, honest.
What the hell were they doing on the international break? That game, they looked physically and mentally broken. I've never seen anything like it. It just looked like a team that didn't want to be there. I'm looking at Portsmouth and thinking that they're the ones in the top 10 and we're the ones in the relegation battle. It just looked terrible. Ohashi looked off it. Carter and Hyam were just absolutely scared of Murphy. Creativity, zero. Absolutely no creativity. Every time we got the ball, it just looked like we didn't know what to do with it. The goal will break down, to concede. But going forward, it looked like we had no urgency. It's like no one cared. I mean, it took until like the 91st minute to me to feel like the lads were actually trying to do anything. And all they started doing then after that was passing it round at the back, like trying to wait for something to open. They just look physically like they can't cope. They look mentally like they can't cope. The club we know isn't, I don't want to say it's in a mess because people will have a go at me for saying it's in a mess, but it is in a mess, and it's now come onto the pitch, and that's the issue. Like before, we could let things go. We knew that things in the background weren't great and what we wanted, but at least the lads were giving everything on the pitch. We looked like we could win a game. We looked like we could actually enjoy watching Rovers, but we've lost that now. So not only is it an absolute shower of shit off the pitch, it's now shower of shit on the pitch. And to be honest, football's supposed to be an entertainment. The reason like fans come back, they're supposed to be entertained. They're supposed to be coming back and enjoying it. And it's been, I can't see where this future lies with this club right now. We need to break it down. Jeez, I like to talk, don't I? I'll let you have a say now.
I just loved it when you were like, I don't want to say it's in a mess because people are above me, but it is in a mess. I think you spoke for every one of us, Mike. I've tried to compartmentalize it, if you like. I think it's easier. So I'm going to start with the manager because he picks a team. We've talked about how he's come into this situation and it's awkward and things like that. He's gone back to 4-2-3-1, which is a formation that the players know well. I still think his comments after the game, I know I'm jumping around a bit, and his comments after the previous games have been a bit concerning. So he said initially he wasn't going to change too much. Now he's talking about the players need to be able to pass the ball a bit more and to have a bit more confidence, to be a bit more expansive. They can't do that right now, confidence-wise, but also these players were, he's talked about they need to get out the mindset of being in a low block. Well, that's worked all season. Why have you changed that now? So that's frustrating. I have my sympathies for him in the sense of he's gone with Owen Beck on the left-hand side, and that was working. It was okay, wasn't it? It was one of the better starts. I mean, it's going from like a 2 out of 10 to a 3 out of 10, but it was one of the better starts that we've had in a game under him. I thought Beck was getting forward okay, he looked lively. Then we go on to, our favourite subject of sports science and our fitness and strength and conditioning coaches, and he does a hamstring again. Hedges comes on. That's not a terrible replacement. That's not, having to change shape. That's not, oh my goodness, we've now lost our left-hand sided player. But when you listen to Ishmael after the game, he almost points to that as being, oh, well, that was the end of the game. That was the problem. So that's where I'm going to stop talking about the manager now in some senses, but park him. I then go on to the players. Tronstad and Travis look like they've never played football together. They look like they are not the same players that played at the beginning of the season. We look like a very, very frustrated bunch once again. But I also think now, as much as winning is a habit, losing's a habit. And once that goal went in, it was kind of like we were resigned to, oh, that's it again. Here we go again. And I thought that I was pleased Danny Bart was back. I thought Carter at right back was probably the right decision, although I thought he really, really struggled. But we looked, I'm going to use the phrase, weak as piss in defence. And the goal summed it up.
Well, they were terrified of him. I mean, I looked at him and I thought, you're just like your brother. Like he was just running through like he was the other brother. I was actually thinking, have they swapped him back? Because the way he was playing compared with us, Dolan gets his silly yellow right at the start for no apparent reason. But we just looked terrified of him. And it just seemed to be one of those games where we gave up very, very early.
Yeah. I mean, the goal itself, if we break it down, it's the most basic of attacking moves that you will teach I mean, you probably maybe even teach it younger age groups than you're working with, Mike. But the ball goes into the striker, who drops off slightly, lays it in behind to the gap that he's created. The guy just walks past the right back, between the right back and the centre half, who's barely challenged for the ball, and slots it in. And, well, I mean, that's not even talking about defensive shape, structure, none of that. That's just talking about goddamn awful defending, flat-footed, no aggression to want to win the ball, no determination to win the ball. Now, I think we've talked about them being humans. We've talked about them being demotivated, struggling with the situation. I get all of that. But then there's a pride in yourself. And actually, we are still, as much as I feel like we are so far away, we are, even after this game, we're 5 points off the playoffs. We have played 4 teams in and around the bottom 3. If we'd have won 2 of them, we just let this sink in for a second. If we'd have won 2 of those games, we'd be in the top 6 now.
It's crazy.
And yet
I don't get it.
They look like a team that has actually nothing to play for. And what I just don't get is that team, forget the manager, forget the circumstances. They've worked so hard for each other. You would like to think they can get themselves together, even if they think, do you know what, this manager is absolutely having one here. Get yourselves together, get yourselves as a team and turn around and go, we're still in this. Now, I don't think they are, but we're still in this. We've got however many games. Let's get ourselves together. We deserve to do this for the work we've put in. Let's get ourselves together. And actually, if you're not going to sign a new contract, they're not going to offer you a new contract, whatever it is, you want to get out of the club. You're in a far stronger position if you're in the Premier League or you finish in the playoffs. So I just can't understand why. I think you look at the West Brom game where they've self-motivated. I know they are really, really struggling, but just get yourselves together and just have. I thought this might be it. I thought the international break, not that I've seen anything amazing from the manager or whatever. I just thought, actually, there's more in this dressing room. They're going to pull themselves together and we won't see what we've seen. It might not be perfect. It might not be amazing, but we'll see more. And I felt like we saw less. I felt like we saw a team that were defeated from the outset almost. Certainly once that goal went in.
And the thing is we don't know what the future is going to hold with this club. You know, they've spoken about rebuilds. They've spoken about the fact that, you know, the players that we've got don't necessarily fit the manager, which is fine. You've taken a risk, but that means you've really got to back him in the summer. If you trust this manager, you've got to give him what you want, because apparently he likes young, fit, fast players. We don't have young, fit, fast players. So, you know, if we had an opportunity this year to do something special, and they've chosen a manager that apparently can't use the players that he's got, and apparently creates a pretty bad atmosphere because, you know, you've got to say the players aren't happy. So whatever's being done, they're not happy, and that's going to come down to the manager, because as much as they're going to be annoyed that, you know, John Eustace has left, if he'd come in and just said, look, do you know what? I know he's left. Don't worry about it. I'm going to carry on his good work. I'm going to put my arm around you and act like John Eustace. I think they would have carried on, but there's something that's not right there. Something's happened, and they just look a shell of the team that was just there a few weeks ago. Well, I mean, we're not talking a long time, a few weeks ago. And, you know, he's even got a stronger squad to pick from.
Oh, 100%. And I have a real issue with the fact that he's talking about a rebuild and things like that. I mean, I had an issue with it when he came in because he was almost, you'd have thought we were out of playoff contention, and we were in the playoffs when he came. The way he was talking about the summer, and but we are supposedly not a club that's flush with money. Maybe this has changed overnight. I don't know. We're supposedly a club that the only way you can move forward is to have a real structure and a real continuity and plan behind your recruitment. And the manager fits to you, and you bring a manager in that fits to that, not the other way around. And yet we've got a manager talking about there's going to be a big turnover. These players don't fit my style, pretty much, is what's coming out. Well, what is that about? Why is Valerian? Look, if we'd have brought in Jose Mourinho, who's not the greatest manager anymore, but let's just say he's gone, do you know what? I fancy a new challenge, and he's come to Rovers, and he says, but you need to get players that fit my style. I'd half get that. But we brought in Valerian Ismail, who, I mean, last time I checked, he isn't Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho or even Mikel Arteta, whatever you think of him. And yet we're seemingly ripping up our whole club philosophy to fit him. What point in the interview process have you gone, actually, we'll not go for a manager that fits what we've got. We'll just let them decide what we're going to do moving forward. Well, what's the point now in your recruitment department? What's the point in Rudy Gestede? I'll be honest, I am so furious with what's going on right now because yet again, this is once again an absolute contradiction of themselves. And I just don't get it. And the people who are crying out and calling this a sabotage job, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but it would fit and make more sense than what I am seeing right now.
Well, that's the thing. Is I'm looking at what they do, not what they say. And what they say is not matching what they are doing. And that is the frustration. And, you know, I mean, I've used the comment asset stripping before and I got pelters for it. But like we said before, this squad doesn't have many players in now that clubs above us would want. And we've always had that. So straight off the bat, you're looking around the squad and thinking, okay, well, we haven't really got any major assets now. And the assets we did have gone. Then you think, okay, well, they've got to be sensible. They've got to run the club. Everyone else has to run their clubs exactly the same under similar constraints to what we do. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand what is happening with Rovers compared to other clubs and why other clubs can go and get these players and sort these things out. And people say, okay, well, we don't have many people coming to our games. Other clubs don't have many people coming to their games. No. You know, everyone's under the same. Just because we've got a bigger stadium than some of these clubs, it doesn't mean that it looks like it's empty compared to others, but we're getting similar attendances to some other clubs that are spending money. And we're supposed to have one of the richest owners in the world, really. I mean, they're meant to be a massively rich family. And yet they're hiding behind this embargo, this court case, but they can still send money. It's just other money needs to go elsewhere. So these are where all the frustrations align with fans. This is why people are saying they want them to stay away. But looking at this game now as an individual, there's not one player there that I thought came out of it positively. Like that, I thought Hashi had a pretty poor game. I'm looking on whoscored.com and Hayden Carter got a 7.7. I personally thought he didn't play that well. I think he was more bothered about getting forward than doing his defensive work. He keeps popping up in that forward line, even at centre back. I know he's right back. So it was a bit of a different role. But even when he was centre back, he's popping up forward and stuff. And I don't know what he's been told to do, but I've not really seen him do this before. But I didn't think there was one player that really came out of that with any credit. Dolan was trying things which, we don't mind at the moment. I thought Woodrow tried a couple of things. I mean, he had his nice little shot, which nearly caught the keeper off guard. Yeah. It was a good effort. Do you think there was anyone really that came out of that and you just thought they were next level for us? They were the ones really trying to grab it and take us forward?
Nobody was next level, no. I thought that when John Buckley came on, he showed some positivity. He showed some endeavour to play the ball forward. I thought, I think Dolan again showed a willingness to try things and a willingness to take the ball in difficult situations. And I would describe that as quite a brave performance from him again. Because actually, when the game's all going well and you're winning, it's easy to want the ball. He's wanting it in some very difficult moments, and not everybody is. I thought Woodrow tried very, very hard, and I'm not being patronising there. I thought he was in a role that didn't really suit him. He's not played for a long time, and actually, I thought he tried a few things, and he tried his best at the role he was given. So I think fair play to him. I thought he did okay.
He did show some glimpses, to be fair.
Yeah, but I just felt as a team that they were lacking a clear direction, some cohesion, but they also looked like they felt sorry for themselves. And I feel sorry for them, but I struggle with it a bit because they're only 5 points off the playoffs. I know we feel like a million miles away, but actually, if they'd have got their act together in this game, regardless of everything else, they'd have been 2 points off. And we weren't playing a good team. Portsmouth are not a good team, but it was pretty comfortable for them. We didn't really have a shot on goal. We had 53% possession, but again, that was because they were happy to sit in. And I never really thought we were going to create anything. And I just felt it was a situation, wasn't it, where you're 1-0 down, where it's getting to a stage of the season now where a draw wouldn't be enough. So even go gung-ho, ignore what the manager's saying. Rankin Costello came on and I thought, oh, are we going to see him do what he does when we're behind and he just ends up in the box? Not really. It was kind of like, it felt like a game where there was nothing to play for. And like they'd already...
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Checked. I think for whatever reason, they look mentally like they've checked out. And I'm not saying they want to be like that. I'm not, maybe, they're humans. Maybe the emotions have just drained them because they look drained.
Well, that was the one thing I said in my reaction was it got to the 91st minute and then we started to show some urgency of trying to get the ball in the box. And then suddenly the ball was being played around our midfield and back line again. And I'm like, hang on, have I got the score wrong here? Are we the ones winning? Because it looks like we're not trying to do anything. And I bet Portsmouth were just creasing because they was not under any pressure. I can't remember their keeper doing anything. In fact, their keeper looked ropey at times. And we wasn't putting him under any, and we wasn't putting him under any pressure. I thought it was quite a scary watch, seeing us not make that effort, and that was really frustrating to me because the one thing we've said about this group of lads is they will give you everything. They will try their best. They're a sum of all parts. They've got determination, and they just looked like they had none of it. Like you said, it looked like an exhibition game. It looked like a friendly. It looked like they didn't care. But to have no momentum in that game at any point when you're playing a team that's that far down the league and you've had the international break is quite scary. It was like there was no plan. Normally there's a plan. We've talked about it before with games. You said David Lowe was the one doing the scout reports, planning and stuff like that. This time, nothing. It just, like you said, we started okay, but it wasn't like we were battering them and it didn't look like we was going to go and get 2-3 goals.
Not at all. I think the only thing that disgusted me more was Portsmouth fans' reaction to Owen Beck. A young player who's clearly got a muscle injury. They can see he's going to go straight off. So he's not like his time wasting. And they were appalling with him. I was absolutely disgusted in them, to be honest. And they have, they've got a black mark against their name in my book now. I will remember that one. And I don't hold grudges in life, but I do in football. But yeah, I'm worried about it for a number of reasons. But I did think this team might have it in them to galvanise themselves in spite of everything, in spite of whatever the manager's saying. Let's say he's telling them something they don't agree with it. They're kind of at the stage of the season now where, well, do it for yourselves. And if they're genuine, because I don't believe for 1 second that they don't care. So if they actually can't motivate themselves, if they're actually that drained by this whole whatever, it's really sad. Isn't it? It's just a sad state of affairs, and it's a very depressing time to be a Rovers fan once again. And it feels like this happens over and over. It feels like they build up your hopes, and you kind of, it's there in the background, but you block out everything else that's happening and why it probably will go wrong. And you kid yourself into thinking, well, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe in spite of everything, we will actually pull a rabbit out of the hat. And then again, you go, oh, the hope has gone once again.
Well, that's the thing. Players come and go, managers come and go, owners come and go, but the fans are the ones that are always here no matter what. Like they say, the football club's the one thing in life you just don't change. and we're the ones that are left to suffer. And as much as I agree with your point that we are only 5 points off playoffs, ultimately the trend is only showing downwards. And and that's what we're seeing. So when I have fans say to me, it's like laughing, saying, Blackburn are doing their usual falling off after Christmas, but you're still in the playoffs, it can still change. No, this is happening all the time. It's happening every single year. And this time it feels worse because we do feel like there's not a squad to kind of back us up, and there's people that are going to be leaving. There's a manager that obviously hasn't got the backing of the players, and we can't see the club coming, the owners coming in the summer and backing him financially. So then you just think, what is the future? What is the future? Because looking at this game in isolation, it was terrible. Looking at it as a run of form, it's even worse. How can we go from beating West Brom, a very good side, to doing what we've done now? It's absolutely horrific, and there just seems no end in it, and that's why the fans are getting frustrated. And what we've said, that we won't claim whether the right thing is to stay away from the ground or not. We want to support the lads. We want to support the team, but it's very hard to right now.
But we're human as well. It's a natural reaction. It's very, very difficult. And I think in terms of what does the future hold, I think managerially, I worry, because I think we're sleepwalking into a situation where a manager is going to end up with a very poor record at the end of one season. And that usually means the pressure is on at the beginning of the next season. And that's usually when managers leave very early. If we are then changing tact and allowing him to bring in who he wants, and we start the season off as badly as we are now, it's going to get more and more toxic. And then we could be left with a team that he's designed, and it's still not working. And then almost the season's wrote off next season. And those kind of things, I know it looks like I'm overreacting here, but we're sleepwalking into that situation once again. And it's so frustrating. I think in terms of what the future holds for the club, I might be wrong in this, but I believe Venkys haven't put money into the club since the court case started. I might be wrong in that, but that would indicate that they are funding the club based on as little investment anyway. Let's say as little investment as possible, and using the Sant transfers and the money that they're bringing in. There isn't anyone to bring money in for now, so they're going to have to face either doing it or not. Is that what the contract situation is about? The communication's not there, so you've got to jump to these conclusions and question it. Are we looking at, Dolan wants a bit too much and it's not even that much, but we're going to be shopping around the bargain basement if that's the case? Are we going to look at selling Travis? Is that why we're not renewing his contract? It seems very, very short term and very, very dim outlook right now, whatever way you look at it.
And that's the thing, we don't expect them to come out and communicate all the intricate details of their plan. We just want to know that there is one. We just want to know that, as soon as Eustace left and they brought this new manager in, discuss the plan, because now there's these rumours coming out about what Gary O'Neill said. And that's not good, is it?
No, pretty horrific for those that don't know. I mean, it's only rumour, isn't it, on X, but apparently he asked for some assurances about what the budget will be in the Championship, what it'd be in the Premier League. Talk to me about your plan for the next 18 months, 2 years, which is all the kind of things John Eustace had, and they couldn't give him an answer. Well, that would tie in with what John Eustace has said, wouldn't it? And we're talking here about what the club's say and what they do. Well, Yondal Thomason said the same thing. Tony Mowbray, whether you wanted him to stay or you didn't, the way they handled the departure after, was it 5 years, of a man that restored pride in our club, restored us to talking about football and not everything else, and they didn't even communicate about his contract. The pattern is there, and it's not good enough. The club and the fans and the players deserve more, and it's not good enough, and something needs to change. I don't know how it changes. I don't know when it changes, but it does.
And we've said today it's not going to be a very long podcast, because I don't think people want to listen to Rovers content right now.
No.
But we're going to move on now to the Middlesbrough game. Let's talk about that while we're talking about the atmosphere and stuff, let's talk about the atmosphere. What do you think Ewood Park's going to be like on Friday night?
Friday night games are a weird atmosphere, but they've actually been all right, haven't they? The most recent one was Preston. I think some fans will choose to stay away. I think some fans will go after work and have a couple of beers, and the first 10 minutes will dictate it. But barring us going 2 or 3 up, and I still think it wouldn't stop it, it might just delay it. I think it's going to be, unfortunately, a very toxic atmosphere. I think they'll be chanting about those that are there. They'll be chanting about the owners. And generally speaking, people are an extremely frustrated bunch. They feel like they've got very little control or faith in their club, very little faith, very little hope in the future. And they're frustrated at worst, angry at best, or the other way around, whatever way you want to look at it. And that's going to come out. And they want to support the players, but I don't think people are going to be able to help it. There's going to be very, very frustrated people. And there's going to be arguments amongst each other in the stands. There'll be people that want them to just chant about the players. There'll be people that don't want them to shout Venkys out. There'll be people that don't want them to aim stuff. It's just going to be, I can't see anything. I want it to be, I want them to just get behind the players for 90 minutes and let's pretend everything's okay and whatever in some ways. But you can't. We're human beings. And it's not going to look pretty viewing on Sky, let alone being there.
I think that's the thing. I think a few people are going to see an opportunity because it is on Sky to make a stand. Obviously, it's currently 11:30 in the evening on Monday night. We're very tired. It's been a long day, long evening, and we're trying to figure out, something that might happen but there's a few days to go. We might start hearing things on social media about protests and things like that. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that it is going to be a game that we need to get something from. If we lose that, I dread to think what that final whistle is, because Ishmael is not coming in, applauding the fans and stuff, so he's winding fans up. The performances haven't been there from the players. Tactically, we've lost. I think if we see another performance and Ishmael goes straight down the tunnel again, I think there's going to be some pretty angry fans.
Yeah. I think when you travel as far as those supporters did, the 1,000 and a bit supporters to Portsmouth, you watch that absolute drivel again, and the manager doesn't even come over and apologise or clap or whatever he wants to do, and he doesn't even acknowledge them. It's pretty poor.
I think that's really bad.
And that's why I'd said to you about, I can't remember which home game it was, but it was early on in his reign. He didn't do it at Derby, but then there was a home game, wasn't there? And he didn't do it again. He went straight down the tunnel and left the players to take the flak. And that's, for me, I think sometimes people who maybe live abroad or don't necessarily, they might listen to the game, you don't pick up on that as much. It's happened, but when you're there and you're actually experiencing the atmosphere and then you see a manager leave his players out to dry like that, that's when I started to get alarm bells about him. Now, maybe that's just his way, but it's not the right way. I think, those managers, we don't know, do we? And I made a bit of a flippant comment and said, well, I don't know what he's like when we win. But maybe he is one who comes over and fist bumps. Maybe he's the same whether you win or you lose. And it's like, it's not about me, it's about the players. Off I go. But actually, right, I think as a leader, you should be the one at the front going, I'll take this, lads. You come with me if you want, but I should be taking this. Travis is at the front. Travis is taking it on the chin. And he's the one at the front saying, I'm sorry. And for me, your leader, your manager should be doing that. If I was one of the players, I'd be pretty annoyed with that. Yeah.
Oh, I'll be fuming. I mean, it was Managerial 101, wasn't it? I mean, you had Alex Ferguson and Mourinho with the classics for it. They came and protect their players, point the finger at everyone else, and it was protect their players. And he's not doing that. He's calling about needing a rebuild. well, you're basically saying your current players aren't what you want. He's saying that the players need to do this, this, and this. Okay, well, you're now publicly calling them out. And then at the end of games, he's not coming to the fans, and like you say, he's letting the fans take the players take the flak. It's just not a good look because, as much as a lot of these players, their talent is limited, let's say, respectfully limited. As fans, we appreciate that. We appreciate the fact that this squad isn't the level that we would hope for a Blackburn Rovers squad, but we've grown to love them because they've given us everything that they have had for weeks and weeks and months, and then he comes in and it all seems to have gone to pot, and that's why I think the fans are frustrated. And we go into this Middlesbrough game, and I don't know what the answer is. I know the formation needs to stay that 4-2-3-1. I have an idea of the kind of players I want in there, but something needs to happen. Something needs to change, whether that's Middlesbrough have a terrible game and we just manage to get a couple of goals and we relax. But we said that we just wanted to see some good performances. We wasn't bothered about the results. Well, we're not seeing anything right now, so we need something. So right now, I would just take scuffing off someone's arse into the bottom corner and winning 1-0, because if you remember when Gay did that against Sheffield Wednesday and he just scuffed in off his shoulder, he was off to the races. It shows how much confidence can make a difference. So I just hope that this game, just something goes our way. The Portsmouth game, I thought the ref was terrible. I thought there was things that just didn't go our way that should have done. To go back to that Portsmouth game, actually, there was this one point where Carter bodied their player right on the edge of their box and went to cross it, and it was a foul. Personally, I don't think it was, but I'm an old school player. But then they had a player go straight through the back of, I think, Tronstad. I'm not sure, on the halfway line, and it went without a foul. I was just getting really frustrated. But anyway, by the by, we've done with the Portsmouth game. But I think that this game, we just need something to fall our way. And it's getting to a point now where we're hoping for luck more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've got quite a good record against Middlesbrough, if you want some hope. They're away from home. They're not amazing, particularly recently. They've drawn with Luton, who are appalling. They make us look like Brazil. They've just scraped over the line at home against Oxford. They lost at Swansea. Again, not a good team, but and again, we lost away at Swansea. So it's a game that we can win. Well, in theory, it's a game we can win. I can't see any which way that we'll even get a point out of it, particularly if they score, because I can't see how, right now, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet and I can't see us scoring. So a 0-0 is about the best, by some miracle, we can go for. But yeah, it's a very, very grim time, isn't it? And I've been very disappointed with the manager's reaction around it. I've been very disappointed in the general message that's coming out, and I can understand why the players are. But I think they can't escape the full criticism, because ultimately it's them on the pitch. And whilst they're humans, whilst they've got natural feelings and reactions and stuff, I actually do think there's a bit of it here where when you look at the international break and you see by some miracle we're still 5 points off, you get yourselves together and you go, come on, nobody's trying to get this 6th spot here. Let's make it us. Let's do our very best. Let's look at it at the end of the season and have absolutely no regrets. And I think they're going to have a lot, regardless of the manager, whether that's when they've looked back in the end of their career or whether it's in the summer. But yeah.
I would have loved to have known what Ishmael did with them. Like, team building, getting to know him, getting to know them. That's a huge thing. So I'm doing my next level coaching badges now. And one of the things they really press, and this is just at, grassroots level, is know your players. if you know your players, you can really help them develop. That could be knowing the football team they support. It could be knowing about their what they're doing at school, things like that, or when they're older, their girlfriends, their wives, boyfriends' name. You're supposed to get to know the player, and it's a very big thing that the FA push. And I just get the feeling he just isn't bothered about any of these guys. It just looks like they just don't know him. He doesn't know them, and he looks completely disconnected from them when he's on the sidelines and stuff. I don't know. I just get this feeling that there's just no connection there. And back in the day, Sam Allardyce, we hear the stories about him, taking them all to Dubai and saying it's a club fine if you don't come on the night out and things like that. It goes a long way. Things like that go a long way. And I would love to know if he tried anything like that, because at the moment, he seems like a very arrogant man that thinks that he probably knows way more than he actually does about the league and so on. And I think he thought this was going to be, an easy ride to come in and get some results. And he just looks like a guy that doesn't have any answers right now.
I just think his messaging's been all wrong. If you're a player, you're going to read the stuff there. What's he saying to them? I presume the same. And the first interview, he said, I'm not going to change much. But then at the same time, he's talking about the summer. I'll put my stamp on it. And he wasn't talking about just the way he wants to play, really. And then the more the weeks have gone on, the more he's talking about, he's just completely discredited everything the players have done. And that they're in a low block, they need to be doing better. They need to be more positive. They need to be braver. They need to move the ball. Now, all these things, it's not that I necessarily disagree with them. It's not that I don't think we should play with more urgency. It's not that I don't want us to play more on the front foot. But there's a reason that Eustace did it. And it was working. Whether he agrees with it or not, it was working. So this is not Man United where Ruben Amorim's come in and they've, from many aspects, but where they've gone, right, Man United are fundamentally flawed. Let's go in a direction of somebody that we think can lead us. And this man plays away, and we know we're going to have some short-term pain, but we're going to bring him in. We're talking about a team that was in the playoffs, that was overachieving, that were getting more out of what they should have been, really. And you've not respected that, to my mind. And I think that's coming across in the players. I think there's no respect between them or him. And every interview he does now, it gets worse because he talks about, he discredits everything they're doing a bit more and talks about how he needs a big turnover in the summer. Now, maybe in his interview, they talked about a big turnover in the summer and you need to reduce costs. We've heard that before. I remember Gary Boyer talking about that, how he knew he was going to have loans and freebies. Maybe that's what they've said to him. But surely you make the most of what you've got for now anyway. And he's not even doing that. So, right now, and I don't know the bloke, but I've got very little respect for him as well.
Well, I know it sounds bad, but I can't listen to the interviews with him now. It's grating on me a little bit, some of the stuff he's saying, because I do think he's doing it wrong, and that's not me as trying to pretend that I know more than of an experienced football coach, but just me as a human, and as a football fan that's seen, like we've said, so many managers come out and they say so much tosh to protect their players, and you know what they're doing, but players know what they're doing, and the players will respect that. And it's a crazy situation. But Mark, the Venkys call you, your manager for the week. How do you prepare the guys for Middlesbrough?
Honestly, I think you get them in the room, you talk to the likes of Lewis Travis, Danny Bart, and you say, we can't fix everything. What was fundamental to your success? And it was around having the centre halves, everything in front of them, having the full-backs the width of the box, having Tronstad and Travis doing what they did best, knowing their roles, having three in front of them that aren't a million miles away, and the team are compact from front to back. They can get the ball up the pitch. They move up as a unit. They move back as a unit and go back to basics. Be hard to beat. Have a pride in your play and say, right, we start from the point of we've got a draw to start with. We have a clean sheet. We keep them and we work together. And if after 60 minutes you're absolutely knackered and you need to change 4 people, We will do it. But we're going to go back to what was working, and we're going to get the very best out of you guys. And we know you're struggling with confidence. We're not asking you to overplay. If you feel you need to knock it long, you do that. But just go back to what was working. Because right now, it's looking very disjointed.
100% agree. I think it's a man management thing now with the guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we didn't play this expansive football. We just played simple football. Yes, the subs at times were very good with what Eustace did, but Eustace just made sure they were prepared and they were set up. And let's be honest, he performed miracles because, you know, it was obvious that what he was doing was working with what he had, and now Ishmael can't get it done. So I completely agree. I think it's a man management thing now for the guys. I'd personally just spend the whole week just trying to get them confident, you know, set them up tactically, obviously, but just trying to get them on that pitch, having some fun together, trying to ease the tension, because there is a tension there. You can tell there's a tension.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look at Gay. I haven't seen Gay smile for a few games. I mean, that's not Gay. No. So there's obviously something going on.
I mean, what Eustace was doing whilst he was working miracles, it wasn't rocket science. He kept them really compact. He kept a fundamental shape to it. Didn't ask them to do things they weren't good at. He got them doing things they were good at and didn't overcomplicate it. And then he studied the opposition, so they felt prepared, looked at how they try and play out, rehearsed that on the training pitch, then showed them them doing it well, to show them that this isn't just other teams. You've done this. We're working on it in training. This is how you can attack them and break them down as well. Worked on it at training. Only 2 or 3 clips of each element. And they gave them very simple, clear messages and said, right, remember the fundamentals. Let's run through them again. Kept it nice and simple. But then showed them. I remember when I went to the session with him and he said, but you've got to show players clear, simple messages because they don't retain everything, but also show them doing it. Tell them this isn't just pie in the sky. This is, you've just done that in training. Just do that again. You know your job. You do yours. He knows his. He'll do his. And I don't know why we're getting it so wrong. But you do wonder whether they feel less prepared, whether they don't believe in what they're doing, which must be incredibly demotivating.
They say that football's a simple game. It's the coaches that make it hard, and it definitely feels like one of those situations. But like we said, we was going to keep this one a short one. But before we go, we've got one negative thing to talk about, one positive. We'll start with a negative, so we will end on a positive. Mm-hmm. So the negative thing is obviously all this out in the media now about keeping executives away and things like that. We saw then a statement come out from the club. What was your thoughts on the statement?
I think it's going to be very difficult to keep executives away from the club. I think just put yourselves in their shoes for a second. I know people probably don't. There are EFL rules around having to have certain members of the club there. They could be less visible, I suppose, but you have to have them there. They have a job to do, whether you think they're doing a good job or not. That's not what I'm talking about. They have roles to fulfill and regulations that you have to fulfill, people to greet, whatever it is. So they actually couldn't do that, but they could make themselves less visible. But I also think it's a very slippery slope if you're them, whether you agree with them or not. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes now. To then, what if the fans turn around and say, I don't want to come all next season as well, or whatever. I think it's a very slippery slope. So I can understand why they haven't done it. But I mean, when you then looked all over X and people were doing the AI checkers of the statement, and it was coming up, pinging off the charts, wasn't it, that it's AI generated? I mean, well, maybe we should get AI to run the club. I don't know. It might have better luck. But yeah, my thoughts were, I understood what the fans were saying, but I'm not saying I agree with either side here, and I'm not just trying to sit on the fence, but I actually think I don't think the club could have followed through with it. Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, First thing, don't get me started on AI. As we know, I'm an extremely opinionated person, and I'm very opinionated when it comes to AI. Not in a Skynet kind of thing, just people using AI. I think it's lazy, but that's another thing. So, but as far as the keeping the executives away, I just think that I was aware that there were some rules. I think that the club need to understand the situation right now and maybe have them a bit less visible. I think that it's good that all of this is coming out into the media. I think when I say it's good, hopefully it brings an end to something, or the start of an end, something, just an action, some action to come somewhere with the club, because that needs to happen. But I do think it has an adverse effect on the players. We've spoken about it, and this is something obviously we'll talk about when we get to the positive news. But we hear about how players, do get affected by the atmosphere and do get affected. And Travis is very vocal on social media, but being apologetic and trying to be that leader, and it's great. But when you get all these things coming out in the media, it is going to affect the players. It's going to affect their careers, because they're thinking about their money, protecting themselves. And we said about Vyman, didn't we? He went and got his operation to sort himself out. We're realistic. He's an older guy, and he's got to protect himself and get some money for his life and his family, whatever he's got. So we appreciate the fact that, the players are not necessarily going to react too well to things like this, and they're going to start to, self-preservation mode with them. So I think some of it is negative, and I think some of it could be positive. It's a difficult one. I try to keep to just the football. I really do, because I love football. I love the game. I love the Blackburn Rovers as a team. As a club right now, it's embarrassing. But as a team, I love them. And I'm trying to keep to that. So I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. I'm going to stay with you and say that I appreciate both sides of the argument. But let's move on to that positive news. So the positive thing is the reason why it's nearly 12 o'clock at night on Monday and we're recording this is because we have spoken to a player. We're not going to say who that player is, but it was a very interesting conversation. And the thing that we loved, Mark, is he loved talking like me and you, didn't he?
Oh, we've got a 2-hour special coming your way. Absolutely. I thought he was very open and honest. I thought he gave a really good insight into the world and mindset of a footballer and the things that you don't see and hear. And we were able to get a real insight into the workings of the club, workings of contract situations. And I think a few people might be very interested to hear what he was saying. Yes.
Well, we don't normally do quizzes, but we're going to do a quiz. So put your comments down below on who you think we've spoken for 2 hours for that was very chatty. And to be honest, we could have probably talked for longer with this lad, because it was very interesting. We both listened to podcasts. We listened to Under the Cosh, all of them. And it had a very much vibe of that, and it was a very candid conversation, and it was someone that wanted to come out and talk, and we really enjoyed it, and we hope you do. And considering, what we're going through as Rovers fans at the moment, it was nice to have that 2-hour conversation. But put your comments down below who you think that is. But until that comes out, Mark, next week podcast. Are we going to have? Are we going to be positive?
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to beat Middlesbrough, Mike, on Friday nights, and it's Friday night. You've got a full weekend then to keep the wife entertained and take her shopping, whatever she wants to do. Ready for Tuesday night when we've recorded a pod, we've put it out there, and then we roll into Sheffield Wednesday bring their brass band to Ewood to celebrate us getting it back into the playoffs. Will that do? Did I sound convincing?
Very convincing, Mark. Yeah, I'll go with you on that one, and I promise we're not drunk. No, we appreciate all the support that we've had from people. When Mark put out the tweet today about us recording, there was people saying, I don't know how you do it.
No.
To be honest, we do it because we feel like we need to. We need to do it for us. We feel like we need to for you. We're fans. We're not journalists, or anything. We just we wear our heart on our sleeves. We put it out there. But the comment section down below, we read it. So put down there what your thoughts are, because we like to gauge how you're feeling as well as fans. So it's all there, and make sure you share and do all the good stuff as well. But Mark, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, pal. It's 23:46 just for context right now. We both have work in a few hours.
Yeah, I'm bloody knackered. So let's all go to bed. Sweet dreams, everyone, and we'll see you next time.